As promised and as previously explained in a different video, fonts. Also, inline CSS. In order to specify a font, you need to use font family. But before we can do that, we need to specify the inline CSS, which I don't recommend using any more than internal CSS. Instead, I recommend using external CSS. This is for the sake of tidiness and organization. But at the end of the day, it's your choice. I can't stop you. So what all did I just do and why? When it comes to inline CSS, the first thing you want to type is style. Style tells what's inside the tag, though what's going to happen inside is all going to be CSS. Inside of that is font family. Font family refers to a series of fonts that you can use. Excuse me while I refer to this. Excuse me while I refer to W3 Schools for this. Refers to the list of fonts you can use to tell the text how to look. And there are multiple types. These two pages are basically the same. These two pages are basically exactly the same. Let's close one. Before I go any further, I have to explain what fallback fonts are. You can in fact specify multiple fonts. So if one font doesn't work on any one device that doesn't have it, it goes to the next font and the next one and so forth until it actually works. So the idea is to have as it says, a generic font family name on its page, one that's guaranteed to be used by the device, one that the device is guaranteed to have. But that does not mean you can just go typing an endless list of fonts and hoping that one of them will work. At most, I'd suggest typing 3, just like it shows here. In the front, in quotation marks, is the name of the font that requires more than one word. But I played it safe and put a quotation mark around my font that only had one word just to be safe. So things like Times New Roman and Arial Black, you're going to want to have quotation marks around it. But here, let me display this for you. See, there's a problem here. There are quotation marks around this whole thing. So how do I solve this? What if I want to put in Times New Roman right now? In that case, I'm going to have to add a single quote line. So let's do that right now. It doesn't work. And the default is already Times New Roman, so excuse me. What we need to do is add a single quote line around these. Doesn't work. Apparently it's not a list of fonts that actually helps. So I'm going to try a different one instead. We need one that has 2 words in it so I can test this out for myself. Let's see how right or wrong I am right now. Okay, so I do need to correct myself. You don't need to see quote lines around these if it has multiple words. You don't. Now, there is a problem with inline CSS. you're going to have to do a lot of copying and pasting for each and every tag this applies to. So, how do you get around this? Let's say, for instance, we want to apply to both paragraphs without having to copy and paste the whole thing. There is such a thing as internal CSS. And even though in the previous video I just displayed how it was supposed to show up inside the head tag, I'm going to type on the outside anyway. As you can see, it now applies to all of them. But now, what if using this, I don't know, let me not get too far ahead of myself here. So we can change this to whatever the hell we want as long as it works in web pages. And there are in fact a list of fonts that it designates. What the hell is brush script? No one's going to be able to read that. Exactly. No one's going to be able to read this. Of course I'm not going to use that. It's not something I'd use. I believe I do need to talk about one more thing now. IDs and classes. P is just a tag. We want to choose a different font for the second paragraph. A font that is neither of these. In this case, I'm going to make it Arial. But how am I going to do that? Before I do anything else, I need to give it an ID. An ID is referenced in HTML with a hashtag or a pound symbol. See, with the P tag alone, it refers to, with this alone and without anything in front of it, not a dot, not a hashtag, because dots are for classes. It'll refer to the entire tag. Any tag that reads this is what it's going to refer to. So if I refer to a head tag and try to do something with this and put head in here, or H1 for instance, then we get a different result. Then everything that says H1 is going to share this exact font family. In fact, let me show that off right now. First, let's add H1. And let's put this above the paragraphs. Before I continue, I did in fact advertise the fact that you can edit font size without needing H1. We're going to do some internal CSS right now to just show it off. But as I just advertised, we can also do this with internal CSS, i.e. not inline. So let's do that right now. Same thing. So even though heading 1 is supposed to be larger than heading 2, because I chose to give it a different font size, it's smaller than heading 2 now. Things are getting messy, and I still need to explain a few things in this video. Processing here, trying not to get too far ahead of myself here, and trying to remember what exactly I was going to explain. Oh, right. IDs and classes. We want to give the first paragraph here an ID of its own. No, we want to give the second paragraph an ID of its own. So let's do that right now. The easiest way to do this is to say ID P2. Nothing changed. Let's go to a different font. Am I doing something wrong here? Let me look back. I am not doing anything wrong. Except this. I think. IDs are case sensitive. You learn something new every day. So keep that in mind. IDs are case sensitive, and I'm going to guess for the same purpose. I'm going to assume for the same purpose that classes are too. So now it has different ID. So now it has the ID that P doesn't. It could have the same ID and they'd be affected the same way. But because not only does P not have an ID, and this P does, I know how awkward that is that I'm saying it that way. Regardless of what the hell the paragraph tells us to make things look like, the ID tells different. And so the ID name supersedes the main tag. For the same purpose, we can do the same thing with headings. So let's specify a head. Let's choose the first heading right now. We want this to be larger again. So let's give that its own ID. Same thing. There is one thing I need to talk about right now. You might have noticed that there are semicolons in front of this stuff. Semicolons in front of the CSS. But why? Why am I doing this? It's because when I add multiple elements, we want to make sure they are separate. We want to make sure they are separate lines or separate declarations. See, unlike the break line tag, which ignores things that, which, unlike the break line tag, which actually acknowledges break lines, and unlike HTML without the break line tags, which ignore excessive breaks, CSS doesn't do that. It understands the fact that we're trying to put in different things in here. For instance, for the paragraphs here, I'm going to put in a font size. Or better yet, a font color. Which has to be just color. I tried that. I just remembered. I tried that. It's telling me not to. I don't need a semicolon, but if I try to do something fancy like font size, it's not going to work anymore. So how do I fix this? By separating it with a semicolon. If you try to use CSS, inline, internal, or external, any kind of CSS, and you find that something's wrong or not working, 99% of the time, it's going to be because you didn't add a semicolon. So make sure you always, I know I'm not going to edit this, make sure you always check to see that your CSS has lines that have semicolons in front of them. For each value, for each property, that would be the left-hand side, each property and value, you want to end it with a semicolon, regardless of anything else is ahead of it. Regardless. It is a safety measure. One five, not 150. That's way too large. Now, as I just promised, I'd give it. Oh, I did give each one a tag, but as promised, I said I'd use it. So let's use it right now. And for the purpose of organization, I'm keeping IDs under the tags, under tag declarations. And as I just found out the hard way, IDs are case sensitive. Fun fact, you may have noticed I put an underscore in here. But why? It's because no matter how hard I try, you cannot involve plain old spaces in. Or maybe you could with the NNBSB tag. Let's find out right now. But no, it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't. It wouldn't. I put it here, it's not applying here, and vice versa, so it wouldn't really matter. And because it's inside a tag, it's not going to read anyway. Don't do that. Just use underscores if you want to put spaces between things, rather than typing it all as one long word. Speaking of one long word, I have to teach Japanese at some point. I intend to, I will. I wasn't coughing that time. You have to understand I don't live alone. So what are we going to apply to this real H1 tag? What do we want to do to make it different? Real H1 is about to get real pretty out here. Let's do the same thing we just did with the other lines. Just add a font color. That will be just color. It's not font color. Contrary to popular belief, it's just color, not font color. We also want this to be larger, as I just remembered I said I would. So let's add the font size. You can put these in any order you want, as long as they're all in there in the first place. I'd suggest using the same order as the rest of them, just to keep things organized. Okay, that is almost it. There is one more thing I need to talk about. Font style and font weight. For this purpose, I'm going to use... No, let's not use inline CSS because that's messy as hell. Instead, let's give this H1 its own ID. So guess what I'm going to do with this. Guess exactly what I'm going to do with this. I'm going to tell italic to look italic. How? Font style. Oblique is also a thing, but apparently it's less used. Let's see what that looks like. So it's basically the same thing. CP2, paragraph 2. Let's make that bold. We can do that with font weight. Font weight, okay. I said, that's bad news. Font style can come in, according to this Firefox document I'm reading, normal, italic, or oblique. So apparently font style does not contain bold. That would be font weight. What the hell is P normal and P thick? What is it doing in here? Oh my goodness. I was about to talk about classes and I just learned something new yet again. We know about IDs, I just spoke about that. I want to talk about classes right now. Oh, you can separate some text into its own class. I'm gonna explain that. Also case sensitive. Can belong to more than one class. So that means if multiple class names you have are supposed to contain more than one word, then you're going to want to use an underscore for it. Oh, that's really informative to know. That's really informative. But there was one thing that shocked me. Where was it? It just surprised me. Was it in here? Same thing. There it is. There's what I found. What is this? What is this? P dot normal? Paragraph normal. So you could put P in front of that. P dot normal. You could put the P tag in front of that. I know how that sounds. That's insane. But how's that work? Can I also use that with headings? Fine, you forced me to do this. Nope. No, it doesn't. Oh my God. I need to separate them. So I was about to explain what classes did, but it also said that so that only applies to divs. No, because it's defining the same thing here. Look at this. Hold it, hold it, hold it. Let me try something really funny here. I'm gonna try to be sneaky here. Oh. 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 We just learned something new. So, if you put just the class name as specified by the period here and run it, then everything with that class name will share those properties. However, if we lock it to just a specific HTML tag, then it will only apply to that HTML tag. So let me try this. Let me try this right now. We just confirmed this, didn't we? Now, We want this to apply to H2, but we want different properties. So the first thing we're going to do is duplicate it. Except this time that's not right. Hold it right there. Oh, it's case sensitive. So if you go back in here and say it won't. Give me a moment. Back at this again. Where apparently the text being white means it can't be black, but that doesn't make sense. Because black is definitely a possible color here. And I tried this both ways, but it didn't work, which makes me wonder why. Where was it? Here it is. For anyone who hasn't figured it out yet, I can't use certain dark colors no matter how hard I try, but I have no idea why. It won't work, no matter how much I want it to. But we did learn one thing. We did learn one specific thing. What do I mean? Holy crap, I can't get it to work anymore. What's going on? Let's start again from the beginning. We found out that classes can be targeted by only specific elements. For instance, I'm going to put the h1 tag again. So now we have heading 1. H2 now has the class of main, which means it now shares that class. Let's make H1 share that class too. So now what am I going to do? I'm going to drag in the same text here, but this time I'm going to change the color, which apparently won't work. But that does. So what's going on here? These both share the same class, but not really. See, H1 gets its own settings. H1 is treated differently because I put H1, the tag of H1, in front of the class name. So any class, any tag with that exact class under that exact HTML tag will have these settings. Anything else that doesn't have H1 in front of it, i.e. H2, will instead get a different set of settings. Everything works but black, apparently. We can mix these around. We can add some IDs in here. We can, in fact, add IDs in here. So let's target this section here. Its class is city, but now its ID is also. So what does that mean? Well, we know how IDs work, right? They are case sensitive. Except, this isn't going to be the case for long. Watch this. IDs override classes. So to briefly review, and I am going to tack this onto the end of the other video, the only thing I'm going to edit out is the long pause at the end. Classes can be targeted with a single period in front of the class name. They get their own settings here. But if I include the HTML tag in front of that class, I can tell it something completely different. For instance, main is supposed to be text line center, but H1 main right now is about to be aligned to the right. Oops. Here, let's mess with this some more. Let's keep things organized. And now they're aligned in the center too. Except, as you might guess, I'm going to mess with this very, very badly. See, the tag H2, and now everything with the class city involved, regardless of any other classes it may have, which is separated by spaces, which means that classes that are supposed to have multiple words in it are best combined with underscores. As I have previously displayed, we can mess around with this even more. Classes are separated by separate names and they can be targeted, but for the same purpose, anything that contains the H2 tag before the dot and the class name gets treated differently. I didn't alter the background color, so they all share the same background color. I altered the font color for 2 of these, which means the one that doesn't have its font color aligned stays the same. And I didn't alter its padding, so the padding stays the same too. I'm now going to tell Tokyo here to realign to the left. But I don't have to try very hard to. Oh dear, we have a problem. Even though city's telling us text line needs to be left, it's under H2. So its text line is center anyway. How do we avoid this? Well, let's kill the redundancy. Let's just take this out of here. Give it its own ID. and then tell it to realign to the left. There it is, back where it should be. IDs are targeted by a hashtag, a pound symbol. Classes are targeted by a period. I can't save for IDs, but classes can have their tags altered, can affect only specific tags. In fact, we can also apply this to the P tag. So guess what we're going to do? We're going to use P for this case and tell its text color to be hadn't thought about that yet. Let's just change font color. Let's just change font size. Let's change font size to something like 30. Well, that's not right. Oh, that's right. Because I'm treating it as a class, not its own tag. Tags don't have anything in front of them. Classes have periods. IDs have hashtags or pound symbols. HTML tags don't have either. There we go. There we go. Oh, that's right. I gotta talk about the span tag. See this text called in addition? We can surround this with a span tag. Now, why am I doing this? It's used to mark a part of a text or document. And since it's affected by CSS, guess what's going to happen? Wow, it's not even out here. No wonder. No wonder. It's a shame. It's a pitiful shame. We're going to target this right now, the span tag. I wonder if we can use CSS on this. Let's find out. Oh. 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 Do you see why it's just external CSS? Look at how tall this document is getting, how unnecessarily tall it's getting. But as you might have guessed, both P and span can also be affected by classes and IDs. Let's do something crazy with this. Text line center main. So what if I put oh, that won't work because it's part of a paragraph. It's already part of a tag. So it was overridden. That's insane. Oh, that's right. We can give span its own ID in class. Let's share its ID with Paris and see if we can make that work. Okay, so it works with classes, but not IDs? It works with classes but not IDs. That's also informative. I'm going to cut the video here and talk about external CSS. It is necessary to explain what external CSS does and how it helps.